right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for another Gimmal education session. Our education series are helpful ways to explore your expertise with your Gimmal software. My name is Marcia Shields from our customer success team. I'll be your host, and joining us today is Tim Butler. Tim's going to be our subject matter expert to talk about all things Gimmal Physical. We're happy to have you with us, whether you're joining us live or watching the recording later. Today, our session is regarding Gimmal Physical, and Tim's going to be reviewing data importing scenarios. Just a few housekeeping things. These sessions typically run 30 minutes. We'll try to stick to that today, but we might go over because this is a pretty healthy topic. No worries though, as mentioned, the session will be recorded. So we'll email that after the event, and it'll also be posted on our Gimmal YouTube channel. If you do have questions, we do encourage those. Please use the Q&A area. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom bar and see the Q&A, you can submit those questions throughout the time, and I will tee those up to Tim after he's done through his presentation. Before we get to the main event, we have our Gimmal All-Star program, which I would like to congratulate our newest All-Stars. Thank you, Tim. So congratulations to Alexa, James, Peter, and Amanda. They've earned enough points to get the Gimmal All-Star badge for 2025. You earn these rewards by signing up, attending the education sessions, as well as participating in any surveys. All right, so before we get started, love your input on something. I'm going to post a poll question for today's session. The question is, how often do you import data into Gimmal Physical? We'd love to hear your input on this, and I'm going to keep this rolling as more people come into the session. So, Tim, I think for me, that's it. I'll hand things over to you to start.
Hey, good. Thank you, Marcia. Let me just change screens here. All right, guys, now looking at the Gimmal Physical screen. And as Marcia said, I'm going to be focusing on the data import functionality. Some of you may recall, actually, last year as part of our users group, we covered mostly the same material we're going to cover today. But okay, because it's a pretty popular topic, it's utilized quite a bit by our client base and a very powerful tool that's used within. So apologies for those of you that might be a bit of a repeat, but hopefully you'll still find it to be helpful.
Hey, Tim, real quick,
Yes.
your screen didn't change to the product in case you wanted to.
Oh, I did want it to. Come on, Zoom, help me out.
It's a tech day.
All right, we'll stop and we'll reshare, see if we can fix it. Yeah, a picture is definitely worth 1,000 words. So let's try that again. How about now?
Yes, sir, you got it.
All right, good. Yeah, thank you, Marcia. That would have been a little awkward. Okay, yeah, guys. So with the Gimmal Physical application, some of the overarching points that you do need to be aware of. We're going to walk through one quick example here today, focused on the importing of boxes and new box data in particular. But I do want you to be aware, although we're focused just on that particular use case, you can use the import functionality in Gimmal Physical to import data into any of what we've historically called the data tabs. So you could do it for folders or boxes. You could create a whole new shelving schema, different locations, organizational, you name it. All of these data tabs in Gimmal Physical work the same way. You can import that data into the tabs, and there's very few exceptions. Really, any data that exists on that tab, you can then include that metadata field as part of what we call an import profile, which I'll show you in just a minute, so that you can import data in. By the way, when you're doing an import, guys, there's a couple of ways to execute that import. You can kind of do it on demand, which is the example we're going to show today, where you point and click to a particular file and you hit a couple of action buttons or menus in Gimmal Physical and off the import goes. So you can certainly do it that way, just as necessary. You can also, in tandem with a nice utility we have known as File Connect, you can set the import up to run automatically. Typically, that means nightly. The typical use case there, guys, is if you've got some other line of business application upstream from Gimmal Physical and nightly you'd like that data to be brought down into Gimmal Physical. That's the primary use case for the File Connect utility. Some of you are already aware of that utility. If not, and you think you might be able to make use of that, please let Marcia know. We can kind of get the ball rolling and get you into the right direction for that utility. Also want to mention, guys, that when you're doing an import, although probably 90 some percent of the time our clients are using it to import new data, you can also actually use the import tool to update existing data. It doesn't have to be bringing new data in, but rather it can be used to simply modify data you already have. There is a combination actually flavor where you can set it up at the same time to either add or modify via the definition of a unique index or key. But you can also actually use that import tool, guys, to delete data. So won't have time today to get into those other two options of modify and delete. Other than just mention, you can do that. And again, if you have that need, please let us know. We can get you the additional details to make that happen. Now, in the end, it's really, a couple, three components that you have to tie together to make the import process work, right? Kind of puzzle piece, if you will, number one is creating what we call an import profile. So I've jumped over here to admin. I'm clicking on the import profiles, and you can see a number of links or import profiles I have created previously. We're going to use just one of these guys here I've already created, in this case, box add. By the way, when you create profiles, I won't take the time to do that. You can give it whatever name you want and some other cosmetic details, but we're just going to work with what I've already created here. So you're seeing a previously created import profile, and I just kept the name pretty intuitive. You could call it whatever you want, called box add. The basic idea is this, guys. When you want to set up an import profile, you're going to see on the left-hand side here, based upon whatever tab you choose up here, right? This list right here is really just showing you all of the tables, which on the whole corresponds to the tabs in the Gimmal Physical application. But I do want to mention here as a quick side note, although probably 99% of the time people are using the import utility to bring data into the tabs, you can also use this import utility to bring data into your various utility lists. So if you've got a big, long, simple list of, I don't know, hundreds of values potentially, just know you don't have to manually create those lists. You can import that entire list in because, to speak technical for just a moment, in the end, whether it's a simple list or a whole data tab, in the backend database, both of those correspond to a table, and the basic paradigm is you can import data into tables within Gimmal Physical. So once you've chosen the tab or the table into which you want to import data, set some other kind of cosmetic characters here. One I want to call out, guys, we chose this option years ago that the default delimiter is that vertical bar or pipe character. And the reason we did that is because it's pretty rare that you actually see this character in your actual data. So to make, we think, everyone's lives easier, we default the delimiter to this vertical pipe. I know a lot of you are familiar with working with comma separated values, and so you might want a comma. Not a problem. You can certainly change it to a comma. I've left mine here as the pipe character, but this is important, right? When we get to kind of the next component here, the data file itself, whatever you specify here needs to match up with what you've got embedded within your data. So choose your table, specify the delimiter. You can add the text qualifier, usually double quotes if you want to around that. You can supply an email address because the import process, it kind of happens behind the scenes, right? When you click the right buttons, you don't sit there and wait and watch a spinning wheel. That process goes off, and when it's done, we can alert you via email. So simply provide that email should you want to do that. Down below, of course, the fields that you see here are based upon the table or the tab you selected up above. And then you simply use your mouse here to grab these fields, highlight a field, click add field, and it pops over here to the right. Now, a couple of really important points to make here, guys. It is fundamentally important that the position, the order, if you will, this needs to match the column order of your data file. If you don't get these numbers right, matching up with the order of your data in your CSV file, it's not going to work. You're going to just error basically every single record. Couple of other points that I want to make here, guys. There's a lot more nuance to importing data. And by the way, we do have a pretty nice tutorial out on the website that walks you through this in a little more detail than I have time to do so today. But there's lots of potential gotchas. I just want to call out two or three of them right now. One of them is what I just said right here. Make sure your delimiter is set up properly to match your data file. The second is the order. Make sure that matches up. The other two I want to call to our attention right now involve the organization and the record series. And then in a moment, we'll talk about current location and home location. When, guys, you are importing data, in my example, we're importing into the boxes tab. And as part of the box information, you want to refer to data that lives on another tab. So example one here is the organizations tab. That's a different tab in the application. The way you do that is that you specify in your data the name of the organization based upon how you have defined what's known as the quick description. Now, I know that was just a lot of, and if you're not familiar with all that, it's just a lot of abstract gobbledygook. I totally get it. So again, I'd encourage you to look at that tutorial. But for now, just know in general, when you're referring to data that lives on what we call a logical tab, in this case, organization, in your data file, make sure you put that data in so it matches the pattern of the quick description for organization in your application. Same exact point for record series. When you're bringing in boxes and you want to classify them under the appropriate record series, your data needs to match the pattern that has been established for quick description for the record series. All right, so when you're referring to logical tab data, you use the quick description as the pattern. When, however, you are referring to location information, so right, this import says, hey, when I bring boxes in, I like to specify where they currently are. I'd also like to specify where they belong when they're not in circulation. Anytime you refer to location information, the rules within Gimmal Physical are that you need the barcode of the location. All right, so with all of that, I'm going to drag on the screen here now my little data file that we're going to go work with in just a moment. But I want to call out a couple things here, right? So I've got 10 records, basic import I'm doing here. This right here, where I'm specifying the organization, right? That's that very first data element in my profile. The pattern of the data here matches my quick description. Same thing with the record series, right? This happens to match the pattern via the quick description. But then notice over here to the far right, guys, when I'm trying to specify the current and the home location, this is the actual barcode, at least in my demo application here. This is the barcode of current location and home location. So I know it's a little bit technical, but this is really fundamentally important in terms of referencing data that lives on other tabs, how you go about doing that.
Hey, Tim.
Please, yes,
I
Marcia.
apologize to, we're not seeing the data file.
My goodness.
I don't,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's a Zoom day.
All right, we're going to try this one more time. Again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I am going to, first of all, try it this way.
We could see the interface still.
Can you see both now?
I see it now. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right, good.
I'll thank the crowd.
Here's that data file I was just talking about that none of you could see, right? The organizational data here needs to match the quick description defined for organization. The data for the record series needs to match the pattern in the quick description. And then location information, I'm actually utilizing the barcode. In this case, it's that string of characters that happen to spell out warehouse. So some potential gotchas, you got to get this stuff right. Now, if you're paying close attention, now that you can actually see my data file, right? I want to call attention to these two down here. I purposefully kind of messed that data up a little bit, right? You'll notice for the organization, I took out a couple of space characters there. And then for this bottommost record in my data file, if you go over here, you'll notice I actually put in a crazy date of October 32nd because I wanted a couple records to actually error out as part of this process. So component number one, when it comes to doing your import, is creating, move this guy back over a little bit, creating this import profile. Component number two, of course, is getting your data. However you need to do that is getting your data into the right format. Again, making sure in terms of the order and the quick descriptions, it matches up with the rules that have been established in Gimmal Physical. Now, once you have those two in place, the question now becomes, okay, how do we actually do the import? Well, this brings us a little bit full circle, guys, back to the beginning of our session here today. If you're using File Connect, that could be happening automatically for you in the background. In our case, we're going to jump in here and do it manually. We're going to scroll down and go to the import page. Once you land on the import page, using this drop down here, you're going to pick from that list of import profiles you saw previously. Here's the one we're working with. When you select that import profile, it shows you what you had constructed for that. There's some other settings here we won't have time to get into, but again, if you haven't already specified an email as part of the profile, you can specify it here. Generally speaking, leave both of those boxes checked. There are occasions where you might not want to, but most of the time that's the case. And then really this is point and click, right? Where you're going to say, hey, I want to go out and find that file, and this guy, I think yeah, it looks like the right one. If you have a really big data file, this little box here will kind of highlight in light blue. So just wait till it turns green before you click on that execute. Now, guys, probably a good place for me to interject into the whole conversation here. And this was, recently highlighted by one of our really awesome clients out there, right? Who we actually love the client. He's very good at giving us feedback. And I want to use it as kind of just a little bit of a teaching example. But before I do, here's a really important point you need to know. Is that when it comes to importing data into any tab, whether it's an add import, a modify import, a delete import, any of the above, guys, we do not apply security constraints to that. Don't have time to get into further details, but for now, just know the general point that this import utility, guys, has been designed for administrators. And so we've just always assumed that those to whom you give the ability to import, security does not need to be applied to them when they're doing that import. Now, it's been brought to our attention. There are use cases where, you know what, Tim, actually, we do want to decentralize some of this stuff and give the import to others. And we do really want security to be applied to them. Want to be upfront with you, that does not exist in the application today. We're going to improve our documentation to make that as clear as possible for folks. It has been added to a potential roadmap, but I want to manage your expectations there. There's no guarantee it will be put in, nor do I have a date when we might have that functionality built in. There's much more conversation to be had there, but what would be nice, guys, actually, is now that I've kind of brought that out front, again, based upon the input from one of our users, if others of you are like, wow, yeah, we didn't know that, and we really do want to decentralize and give the import to other users, please let us know. You can put it right in the chat here. This, guys, the more, and here's the teaching part of it all. In the end, guys, our best ideas come from you, the practitioners. So whether it's this particular topic or other issues that come up, be it a complaint or a suggestion, it's okay, guys, let us know. We want as much feedback as we can to hopefully continue to improve the product. So with all that, let's go ahead and execute the import. Now, as I mentioned, I think up front, the import happens in the background while we're waiting for this import. And because there's only 10 records, it's not going to take very long. But let's just jump back over to admin. I want to call out in terms of the results of an import. What do you have here? So you're seeing when I went to admin import logs, you're seeing the results of other imports here. And right now, I just want to call out, guys, this list will grow over time. You can see the various imports I've done. But here's where I want to draw your attention. Every import that you run, you will both get a log file that we post right in the application. And depending upon your browser version, right, it will usually go to your downloads folder. Then you got to open it up from your downloads. This is just a summary of what happened in the import. How many records we tried to import, how many were successful, how many failed, how long it took to do the import, and all that good stuff. A really nice feature is if something went wrong and the data could not import, We actually take those records that errored out during the import and we plop them into a .errors file, which is really just a CSV file. And it's a nice way. What it does is it isolates those records that did not import successfully. So then rather than wading through your entire data file, you can simply focus on the bad records, make the corrections, give that file a new name, and then import it again as kind of a second attempt to get things right there. This log file, by the way, guys, it also, if you set it up and you say, yeah, give me the email, it will show up in the email so you can have access to it there as well. All right. So here's what I just did a moment ago, right? You can see the date and time stamp. I'm on the East Coast here in the States, so we're seeing that available. So here's my log file. Sure enough, it goes to my downloads folder. Let's open that up. And you're just seeing a quick, it's not pretty, but it gives you the basic information of what was successful. It kind of gives you, and if I made it a little wider so you could see it in all its detail, it's giving you some idea. Like you'll notice this one here, it's like, hey, this valued, we don't know what to do with it. It's not like in the right format, right? So it's a system date time field, and October 32nd is not that. The one above is saying, hey, you know, I looked at the quick description and I could not find a quick description that matched what was specified here. So just wanted to call that guy out. And then of course, the error file itself is what I just told you earlier. Again, it goes to your downloads folder. Here are those two data records. And the basic idea would be this guy's right. You say, oh yeah, look at that. I forgot to do that. And I don't know why I put 1032. It's supposed to be 1031. You'd resave this file and then you can import it all again. So guys, that's the quick overview of the data import capability along with some side notes. I want to stop here. I'm going to bring Marcia back into the conversation as well as all of you in terms of entering questions or comments that you have into the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Before we even get to the questions, we do have a few. We have a couple that were pre-submitted when they registered and a couple that came in. I wanted to share the poll results for everybody. So I'm not trusting Zoom. So the question was, how often do you import data into Gimmal Physical? 52% said only as needed, 43% said regularly, and then both at 5% were never and nightly. So thank you all for participating in that. Interesting.
Oh, and sorry to talk over you, Marcia, but for those 43% of you that said regularly, if you're not using File Connect, there might be a really good use case for you to use it. So please let us know, try to make things a little more efficient for you, especially the ones that said nightly. Yes, should be using File Connect for sure.
Good to go. Great point. Okay, Tim. So I'm going to give you a couple of the questions that came in live. First one is from Will, and he is asking, is it possible to input a value in the import CSV to make an import file field optional? That is, do the reverse of the ignore function in the import profile.
It was my understanding, Will, there'd be no math involved in this meeting today. I am actually looking at your question. I'm going to reread it. Is it possible to input a value in the CSV? Okay, got it. To make an import profile field optional, that is, do the reverse of the ignore function. Not exactly, Will, but sort of. If you are familiar with our functionality known as conditional field display, sort of, yes, and won't have time to get into all the details, but conditional field display allows you to basically have different input templates for different types of files usually, but all housed on the same tab. If you're utilizing conditional field display, then the answer is yes. Based upon usually a file type value, the metadata after that can vary. And if I'm understanding your question correctly, in this scenario, you'd have in your data file, you'd have a bunch of columns with blanks in them if you did not need data for that particular file type. Whereas for those where you needed the data, you'd see data within. Apologies, I know that's a little bit abstract, but I hope it begins to answer your question. Will, if not, follow up with us and we'll dig a little deeper with you.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that too. Good idea. Okay, so second question that came in, Tim, is from Peter. If you add the email address at the time of creating or editing the import profile, that email will always appear no matter who runs the import later, right?
If you add the email as part of the import profile, yes. If you only add it dynamically at the time you execute the import, Gimmal Physical will not remember that. Your browser may remember it, but it would be specific to your machine.
Okay, great. Okay, so another question that came in through registration is from RJ. How to use import to mass update data in Gimmal Physical, and can synonyms be used for legal hold searches?
Okay, great. Two great questions. So, number one, mass updating data. Yes, if you use either a modify or an add modify, it gives you the most flexibility for that mass update. Because when you use either of those flavors, if you will, of import, record by record, you can pick and choose which fields you want to modify or change. Now, that is in the end based upon the definition of a unique key. Usually that's going to be something like the barcode. And so, RJ, for your particular example there, hoping I have something I can pull up quickly. Let's find out if I do. Yeah, so here you go. In this other import profile, I designated a field as box number as the key field. The key field can be made up of multiple columns if necessary. In this example, we kept it simple. It's one. But one quick use case there, RJ, is if you got a bunch of data already in Gimmal Physical and you want to do a mass update, what you can do is first export that data out of Gimmal Physical into a CSV, ensuring that you include the unique value, whether it's box number or barcode or what have you. And then in your spreadsheet program, right, go ahead and make the modifications that you want to make, and then simply re-import that data back in. It gives you the most flexibility in terms of you can change every single data record however you want to. Now, RJ, I think you in particular, as well as others, you are aware there are a couple of nice features in the application for bulk manipulating data. Just point them out real quick, right? Bulk update. If it's the case, RJ, that you're like, you know what, Tim, I got 5,000 records, and for all 5,000, I want some data field to have this value. You could certainly do that via the export import process, but just use the bulk update. You can query up all those records, a couple clicks. It will change a singular field from whatever it was across those 5,000 records to a new singular value across all 5,000. And then sort of related to that, again, I think most are aware, search and replace, very similar, but rather than changing the entire contents of a data field, it changes a string of data within. So just be aware of those. Whenever possible, use these much quicker than the whole export import process. But RJ, I hope I answered your first question. Now, the second one, I may need you to explain a little further. So what I heard there is, can we have synonym functionality when we're searching legal holds? And I always forget, Marcia, can we bring RJ off mute? Can we allow him to speak?
I can allow her to speak. Hang on one
I'm
second.
sorry, sorry,
No,
RJ.
that's okay.
Yep,
Initials.
allow RJ to speak. So I'll let you just clarify in a moment here if we can get you off mute
Yeah,
there.
RJ, there you go.
Right. Yes, no, thank you. And this may not be the correct video for that, but it was just more thinking about, you know, we try to put as much as we can into our descriptions for, legal hold purposes, whether it's an acronym or it's, maybe our community might say oil, but another community might say hydrocarbons, right? Is there ability within the search to allow for that synonym search?
Okay, so two answers. So apologies, RJ, but there's two possibilities here. A lot of you, particularly in the life sciences, the pharmaceutical sector, are aware of our synonym functionality. So you can have synonyms, and the end result there is the same logical concept can be known by different words or different strings of characters. That does sort of what you're asking for, RJ. So the whole story behind that, again, we can follow up with you in terms of the detail of what's capable. One of the big benefits, of course, is when you're using synonym functionality, when you perform a search by one value that's in the related synonym list, the software will bring back all the records that use any of the values. That's the big win for the synonym functionality. Now, there are some caveats to it and some configuration options that have to be set to make all that work. But Marcia, if you would take a note, let's follow up with RJ
Yep.
and see if that would work for her and what she wants to do.
Sounds great. Okay. Thank you, RJ. Okay, so Tim, another question came in from Peter. If using a modified template, it's critical to remember that any empty cell in the import file will overwrite what's in Gimmal, making the field blank in Gimmal. Not a question. Apologize for that. I
Yep.
read it and went on. But yes, thank you, Peter.
Yep.
Okay.
And like I think I've told Peter personally, Peter, if everything's don't work out there at your organization, Gimmal might have a job for you. So
So true.
good point.
We have here's one that came in with the registrations, Tim. During import, two things happen. One, users can do actions like create records where their secured list should block them. And two, import sheet values get replaced with user preference defaults. Both seem hard to defend in audits. Open to
Okay.
input.
Yeah, point number one, it's true. What was just said there is true. We apply no security constraints to the import process. I won't revisit that. It is what it is right now. Number two, in terms of the preferences, I know we're kind of at the bottom of the hour here, but let me
You're
quickly
fine.
jump over there to some preferences. And I'm probably just missing some detail here. So very quickly, generally speaking, where there's kind of overlap between preferences and importing are these two preferences right here. It is indeed the case if part of your import profile you do not specify a location, either current or home. We will use whatever preference exists for that particular user, or the details can vary depending upon the scope, but we will look to preferences to use the values that are here. It is also the case that, like the example we walked through today, if you specify in your import profile and in your import data a differing current or home location, we will use what is in the import profile. So the data in the import will override what you've set here in preferences. If it's related to other preferences, none of them are coming top of mind right now. So I just need to know which ones might be in question there.
No more questions, Tim. You are out of the hot seat. So
Right.
with that, we'll get to our wrap up here. One thing before everybody leaves, put another poll question out there. This really helps us. This tells us if you're going to be at any of the wonderful conferences that we're going to be planning to go to. If you are, Gimmal typically does some on-site events. So we'd love to hear if you're going. That will help our crew that gets to each of these events. Also, if you found today's webinar helpful, we'd love your feedback. When the recording is sent out, which will be in a couple of days, there's a survey link in there. We'd appreciate your feedback and/or any ideas for future sessions. And then, yes, on the right side of your screen is our upcoming sessions for the education series. The next one for Gimmal Physical is August 28th on synonyms. We hope that you can join us. I'm sure that will be a well-attended session as well. I think that's all for today. So we really appreciate everybody joining us. We will see you next time and enjoy the next warm summer days for yourself. Thanks again.